again, it is I, Derek from Tomcat Gas Training, and welcome to this video, which is really a follow-up and a reaction to some of the comments on my two videos on do's and don'ts of servicing boilers. So I did 15 must-dos and do's and don'ts. Anyway, before we get into this video, please could you take some time to subscribe, because it helps the channel. But don't forget to hit that notification bell, because you want YouTube to tell you when we're uploading videos. I think you know by now, it's Mondays and Wednesdays. Anyway, also, don't forget to give me that thumbs up. But that's enough waffling now, so let's get on with it and find out exactly what this video is all about. Now, first of all, I've had quite a few comments on my two videos on the 15 tips and do's and don'ts on servicing boilers. Some of them I couldn't even talk about, and some of them I had to delete straight away. But there are a couple of them I want to just talk about before we get into the video. Now, the first one came from Darren Parker. Alright, mate? Anyway, Darren said, I won't be able to do all these for 50 quid. That's all they want to pay. So I guess Darren's prices are dictated by his customers. Anyway, the worst one is this one, and this came from EPH. Anyway, he says, what a load of CRAP. Anyone with any sense would ignore this video. It's going to take about 3 hours to do all this absolutely unnecessary work, and customers will run a mile from your company. So what we're going to do in this video is actually carry out a full service on this Ariston boiler to the manufacturer's instructions, and add in a few little things in there which I would normally do on a service. And after some of the comments what you guys have put in, I'll be throwing some of those things in as well. Now then, what I'm going to do is, I've got numerous cameras set up around, and the only cuts and stuff editing you're going to see is when I'm switching from cameras when I'm in the way. I'm actually going to do it in real time, so we're going to find out exactly whether this is going to take 3 hours or whether it is worth 50 quid to carry out a service on this Ariston boiler. Now, some of you might say I'm jumping the thing here now because I did all the tips on the actual ideal boiler, but I can probably take the ideal boiler apart a lot quicker than I can take this one. But we're now going to stop waffling, and we're now going to get on with it, and we're going to see if we can prove EPH wrong, that it's going to take me less than 3 hours to do a full strip down service to the manufacturer's instructions on this Ariston boiler. Now, before I carry out any tests on this, and before I actually touch this boiler, I'm just going to make sure it's safe. Now, according to the front panel of this boiler, it's actually turned on, so I'm going to use my non-contact voltage indicator to make sure the casing isn't live before I touch it. So I'm guessing because this is turned on, this plug socket is correct. I am going to check it in a minute, but we can see that lights up live. I can now go around the casing, check everything, check the pipework underneath. Now check it again. We can see that's safe, and we now know it's safe to touch. So I'm just going to check and make sure now that the appliance actually works. So the tap's only here, so I'm going to turn the hot tap on. We should get the boiler firing up in the hot water. Which it has done. The water's starting to get warm now. We know that works. Now going to try the central heating. So I'm just going to turn it on to constant. The little radiator symbol has now gone square, so we know it's getting a signal to come on. can hear it's fired up. So we know it's working on heating, we know it's working on hot water. Now this is a training centre, remember, so I'm not really going to go through all the faults. I'm just going to make it look like, yeah, everything is tickety-boo in that situation. So we know it's working, so I can turn it off and wait now for the boiler to shut down. Because what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to check and make sure everything with the plug socket's correct and the correct size fuse is in the boiler, because you can see this is actually fed off a plug top, and yes, a boiler can be fed off a plug top as long as it's supposed to be an unswitched socket. So anyway, plug the socket and see in. So because it's fed off a socket, I now know through my little socket and see that that's okay. I can now look in here, and I'm looking for a 30 amp fuse through the little box there, and it's a 13 amp fuse. So that's going to need to be changed. So what I would be doing now is telling the customer that that would need to be changed, and they've got a 13 amp fuse in there. So I know the boiler's working, I know everything's right with that. I know the fuse needs to be replaced. I've checked the power coming in and I've checked the safety. So that's the first part of my service done. I'll over and go in. I'll stop watching the corner from when we started. Anyway, next thing is let's get a tightness test on. And before you start, regulation 26.9 says you don't need to do a tightness test, but I am, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to throw a few tests in there which I normally do on a tightness on a service, and also some of the comments what I got in the actual video. I'm going to throw them in, like checking the expansion vessel and stuff like that. So let's get a tightness test done. Now again, before we touch our gas meter, we need to use our non-contact voltage indicator, but we need to turn it on. And we need to still prove again that it's working, which it is. We can now safely touch the anaconda, regulator, bracket, meter. Don't forget the pipe work. And obviously we should follow the pipe work, which as you can see isn't a massive run. So now we know we're safe to touch it once we've proved our non-contact voltage indicator is working again. We can now turn that off. And we can do a quick visual inspection, see what faults you can see. So first fault, ECV falls to on. We do have on-off tape and the anaconda isn't stretched. The regulator does have a seal, and is it the correct one? Yes. Tamper seals are missing off the meter. Does the meter have its... It does have its emergency number, but not the date it was installed. And there's no earth bonding within 600 on the first branch, but there is a bracket and it is secure. So that's our visuals on the gas meter. Can you see me? Right, so the gas meter is here. Now, again, some of you might say, comment in the video, oh, who's going to find a gas meter right next to a boiler? There are some of them, you know. Anyway, so gas is on, so I'm going to turn the gas off. I'm going to use a U-gauge. I don't normally use a U-gauge when I'm doing servicing, but a lot of you guys do, so I'm going to use a U-gauge. Also, to take my test nipple out, I've got my little 10mm socket. I've levelled and zeroed my manometer, so I'm just going to take the test nipple out. I'm going to get this in the right way, and I'm going to quickly put on the hose. So the first test I'm going to do is a let by test, but I need to get it below, well, between 7 and 10, so I need to get it below 10 millibars. So I'm starting off at 9.5 millibars. I'm now going to start my stopwatch for 1 minute. So what I'll probably do is, I'll probably speed this bit up, but I'll leave the actual clock going so you can see it. So that's my 1 minute for my let by, and I'm still bang on 9.5 millibars. So I'm going to slowly rise now the gas to between 20 and 21 millibars. So I've risen it to 20, well, it's gone to 21 millibars. So again, I'm going to time it for 1 minute for my temperature stabilisation. So there's our 1 minute temperature stabilisation, but I actually did set it on 20.5. So there's no need to drop it or rise it, so I can now time it for another 2 minutes. But 1 minute seemed like it's hours. Still no drop. So 2 minutes is up and it's still exactly the same. Now, while I'm at the meter, I am going to turn on slowly the ECV. Now, there's no need to purge because I didn't let all the gas out. It didn't drop below, what did we do the first test at? 9 millibars, whatever it was. So there's no need for me to purge it, but I need to take my standing pressure and my working pressure at the meter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the boiler work by turning the hot tap on. So on the left hand side I have 21.5 millibars. On the right hand side I've got 21.5 millibars. So my working pressure at the meter is 21.5 millibars. So that's good. I'm now going to turn it off and I'm going to let it do the standing pressure, which we have 25.5 on the left hand side and 25.5 on the right hand side. So that shows I levelled and zeroed my manometer correctly, and that's within the tolerance as well. So now all I have to do is disconnect my U gauge because I'm finished at the meter doing the test other than doing my gas rating. So again, while the gas is still on, so again, I'm not purging, I'm just going to put the test nipple in. Get my little ratchet and not go too tight with it. Get the old leak detection fluid out and test it. Do it for a few seconds. Where's my rag? So that's the tightness test done. All we've got to do now is get this casing off the boiler and we can start to think about taking this boiler apart. Now, before I take the casing off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate the power supply and undo the plug. Now, if I was not right near me, I would be retaining the fuse, but I've got to change the fuse anyway. But I don't want anybody to plug it back in by accident. But I am not going in the PCB, so I don't have to do safe isolation. I only need to do the safety touch test. We've done the safety touch test, we know it's safe. So we have some torque screws underneath, so T20s underneath to take the cover off. Now I don't know about you, but I always have these little magnetic dishes. Brilliant, best invention ever. So to make sure I don't lose any of the screws, so covers off. Next thing I need to do is I'm going to take and strip and clean the heat exchanger. So where's my little socket set? So what I'm going to do is, I have had this on, but it is still cool to touch. Now with the Ariston, when you're disconnecting and taking off the heat engine or the burner out, you have to disconnect that lead off the PCB, and you also have to disconnect the earth cable. So they're disconnected. Also, there is a plug, a little clip here, so I can take that off. And now what all I have to do now is undo these 4 nuts and put it on the right way. The whole heat engine will come out. Now, some boilers have torque settings for these and a way of tightening them up. So make sure you always follow the manufacturer's instructions on undoing your nuts. Again, some of the boiler manufacturers want you to change these every time, but Ariston, you don't have to change the seal every time either. So all I need to do now to take the heat engine out is slacken it off and disconnect the wiring, and the whole thing has come out. So I'll just stick this over here. So, bit of insulation in there. Now, first thing I'm doing is checking the back insulation, making sure that's okay. And I've got this little handy tool for making sure it's clean all the way in through here. So thank you, Jordan, for giving me this little handy tool, just to check and make sure it's all clean. It's looking pretty clean anyway. So everything's looking tickety-boo there. No blockages. We've also got a sponge. Now the sponge is a wet sponge, and I'm just wiping around using this bit here. You can't use anything abrasive on this. It's made of metal. And if you see my video on cleaning these stainless steel heat exchangers, you can see you can use vinegar. So I need a cup of water. To wash any debris out of the, and pour it all over the PCB. Should have had a jug, but there you go. Don't do that. And I've cut myself already. Okay, so just need to check this O-ring here, making sure, because this is where the gas connection comes in, before I put it back. But that looks pretty good and it's well lubricated. So I'm just checking inside and making sure we've got no leaks anywhere, which we don't have. So I can now put back the heat engine. before I put it back, the first thing I need to do is check and make sure this is in good condition. It's about a 4mm gap between the spark electrode, which it looks in good condition. And we've got no breaks in the insulation. And the gasket also looks good. And it's not twisted on the front cover, so that looks good. So now I can slide that back in. And what I always do is make sure the gas connection is in first before I put my nuts on. The clip, I can now put the clip back on. It says. So that's the clip back on, and now I can get a little ratchet, put it in the tighten up mode, and I'm just tightening up across and across. I've noticed how I'm not using a massive ratchet, so I don't actually shear anything off, but I do get it tight enough. So that's good. Can now put the electrical connection back on, which I wish I'd done before I'd taken it off, but there you go, rushing. But it does go on easy that way. And I can put this back into the panel. Remember, this is turned off. And I can put the earth cable back in. Okay, so one last check. So that's the heat engine checked and cleaned. Now obviously if it was filthy, it would be a slightly different, wouldn't it? Now this is a silencer here, so I'm just going to take the silencer off and check inside there. And make sure the sponge is still in there, which it is, and it's all in one piece. So that's good. I'm going to stick it back in. Okay. Now I've already got my bucket and my towel down at the bottom because I did this first, which I'm sure you lot will do beforehand. And I'm going to take off the condensate trap, which is basically not a fantastic idea on these, but here we go. And this will clean it all out. So now I can go to the tap and just give it a quick swim. And I can slide it back in. And click it back in. It's on like a little bayonet connector. And I can use the heat exchanger just to flush it out a little bit. And fill the trap back up. That is a nifty idea with these, that you can actually fill your trap up by using the heat exchanger. And now I can just top my water back up if I need to, which I don't really need to, but there you go. So that's the trap cleaned and refilled incredibly quickly. Now then, so expansion vessel, testing the expansion vessel on these boilers. A biggest pain in the backside because they're actually on the back of the boiler. So, yeah. Do we need to check it? I said I was going to check it, but I forgot the ladders, so I'm going to need to go and get the ladders. So I'll do a quick cut here, because I need to go off and get the ladders. So, because I forgot to bring them. Back with the ladders. So, expansion vessel is behind here. So the first thing I've got to do is isolate the boiler underneath and drain it down, because you cannot check an expansion vessel when it's full of water. So first thing I need to do is close these two valves. So there's one here and one here. And again, with my drain bucket and my Allen keys, there is a drain under here. To drain the boiler. And it's always better to use a drain for the boiler than it is to use the pressure relief valve. This one doesn't have a handle, you can pull the middle bit though. And again, we can, if we open this, it would drain the full heat exchanger. But we don't need to drain the full heat exchanger, we just need to get rid of the pressure. And leave the drain open. Going a bit faster. Grab it. Speed it up a bit. It's a bit quicker. Anyway, need to leave that drain open now so we can test the pressure. And I have my little Packside pressure gauge. It's set at 1.9 bar. Now, we need between 0.8 and 0.1 bar in here. So first of all, let's check and see what's in, what pressure we've got in. It's not the easiest thing in the world to get onto. And I don't know if you can see that, but it says half a bar is in there. So I'm just going to top it up to 0.8. So the reason why we've left the drain open is because any water what needs to be pushed out can be pushed out by the air through the drain. Shall I put a bar in? Yeah, let's put a bar in. Obviously you would read in the manufacturer's instructions to see what you need to put in. So I always put in a little bit more, because by the time you take this off, it lets some out. And we can also put the dust cap back on the Schreider valve. But before we put the dust cap back on, we need to make sure we check it isn't leaking. So again, with our trusty leak detection fluid, put it over the Schreider valve. Make sure I leave it for a few seconds. Make sure it's not leaking, which it's not. And we can put the cap back on. We can now close that drain back up. Open the valves, if you can, slowly. Ooh, God, disgusting. That's both the valves open, and we can top it up a little bit to 1.5 bar. Well, there or thereabouts. And we need to make sure we bleed the heat exchanger, which again is a brilliant idea with these. I know some other boilers do have these. That looks pretty clear. I don't think we need to top it back up again. So that is doing the expansion vessel. Now, I think next thing we need to do now is turn it on and check and make sure it works, isn't it? So let's plug it in, turn it on. Thinking about it. Oh, there we go. So, turn back on. Now, we need to run it for a bit of time now before we flue gas analyse this boiler and we do a flue integrity and the final sweep test and the inlet pressures and all the rest of it. Now, what I always do is turn it on and gas rate it. That gives the boiler a chance now to warm up and get ready for doing flue gas analysing. So I think the first one we'll do is we'll gas rate the hot water. Okay, so everything's ready for gas rating, the boiler's turned on. All I've got to do now is turn the stop tap on and take the readings. So tap's on full, I'll wait for the boiler to fire up. Now, I'm gas rating on hot water and central heating, not high and low, because that's what we're supposed to be gas rating. So, this is a G4 meter, so I'm going to wait till it gets to a full figure, and then I'm going to start the stopwatch. I'm going to wait till it gets to 215. So my first figure is 2.215. So I've got to wait now for 2 minutes because, like I say, it's a G4 meter. U6 would be a bit quicker. But anyway, never mind now. All adds to the fun. Now, what I'm also going to do is check the temperature of the water as well while this is running. So we've had 40 seconds. So I'm just going to take, this is the tap on full rate. I'm just going to take how many litres a minute it's doing. It's doing 12 litres a minute. Plug in the place. Turn the probe on. Make sure we're on degrees centigrade. And check the water temperature. I'm still checking the stopwatch to make sure we're not going to run out of time. hot water temperature is going up to, it's on 45.6. We're getting close to putting the place out. So that's staying close to 45.6. We're on 56, 57, 58, 59 now, which is 0.301. So that's the gas rate on hot water. And also the flow rate and temperature rise when we take the cold water. So I'm just going to take the cold water temperature now the same way. We are in the middle of summer, so I'm expecting the hot water to be quite hot. No, I'm expecting the cold water to be quite hot. The cold water is staying around, well, that's 15.9, 15.8, still dropping. So that's to be expected this time of the year, 15.7, 15.6. It's staying pretty stable now, so 15.6 for the cold water temperature. I can mop up all the water now I've spilled. So, what we can do now is, we can gas rate the central heating while we're here. So, I'll turn the central heating on. I'm just going to wait now for the central heating to turn on. So central heating is away now, but I'm just going to leave it for a few seconds just to sort itself out before I gas rate it. Now this hasn't been range rated, this hasn't been changed, it hasn't even got a thermostat on it. So it's pretty much going to stay at that, so we can take those figures now. Use my own stopwatches. Anyway, we're going to wait for a full figure, so we're going to wait for 0.333, which we're on now, and again we're going to wait 2 minutes. This time I can't do anything else, I've got to wait for it. So we're on 55, 56, 57, 58, 59 now, and we're on 0.368. So that's the gas rating for the central heating. So now finished with the central heating, because we don't want to get it too warm in here, I can turn it off. So the tests I've got left to do now are inlet pressures and our flue gas analysing. So I'm going to use my little digital manometer to take my inlet pressures. Now normally when I do inlet pressures, I do my pressures on hot water and central heating, not on high and low, because the benchmark book says they want it on central heating and hot water, but some of the manufacturers say test it on high and low. So it again depends on what the book says and what you need to do. So to make it easier for the video, I'm going to do all the tests on high and low for our inlet pressures. I'll probably do a test as well on central heating so we can see the difference. So on the Ariston boiler, the inlet test point is at the bottom of the gas valve. It's not on the gas isolation valve underneath like it is on some of the manufacturers. So if you check the Ariston manufacturer's instructions, it says a minimum on full rate of 17.5 millibars. We've got no way of checking what the difference is between our working pressure at the meter and our working pressure at the appliance, but if you did have the inlet test nipple on the inside, you could do. Anyway, I'm waffling and cutting down on eating into my time. So anyway, Ariston don't leave a screw in the electronics for the gas valve, so you can disconnect it and you can open the test point. So I have my little test point thing, and I need to turn my digital manometer on and make sure it reads millibars and 0. And just crack this open a little bit, because that's all it needs. And this is the hard bit. So now you can see why they allow you to take the electrics off, and we can plug the connector back on. So we have a standing pressure, because that's what it is at the moment, because nothing's on, of 25.1 at the appliance. So now then, to put this in maximum and minimum, I need to have the flap up. So to put this in maximum, we press and hold the reset button till it comes up test. We then need to press the plus button till we've just got a tap symbol, that's maximum, and if we press it till we've got 2, then that will give us the minimum setting. So that's what we need to do. But first of all, before I do that, I need to set up my flue gas analyzer as well. So come out of the test mode. So all the time I've had my flue gas analyzer here, and I've also had it on charge. I better turn it on, because there's nothing worse when you're doing a video of your flue gas analyzer running out of power. So while that is initialising and turning on, oh, it's not in ratio, I can take the test point out of the top, which again is a T20. Put that in last, didn't lubricate the O-rings. No, they haven't. And one of them is missing. It's not even in there. There's another fault. O-rings missing off the air inlet test point. It's a good job I've got some spares. So, on this one, we have 2 test ports. The one on the left side is our products of combustion, and the one on the right side is our flue integrity. So let's slide that in there first. And we're on. I'll put it on there, so hopefully you can pick that up. Well, that's reading. So now I can put it back in maximum and minimum. So we'll press and hold the reset button so it comes up in the test mode, and when you got a nice sunny day you can't see a thing. So we're going to do it in, because the boiler's all nice and warm, we're going to do it in minimum mode first so it doesn't knock off. So we need to have Can't see it. There you go. The radiators and the tap symbol on, and you can see it's going into minimum mode. Oops. My hose kinked. So, when you're flue gas analysing, if most of you have seen my videos on flue gas analysing, you need a minimum run time of 15 minutes to a maximum of 30. As you've seen, we've gas rated on heating and hot water, so this boiler is pretty warm. So, we're looking for a stable reading. So at the moment, we have, this is on minimum, remember, we have a ratio of 0.0001, we have a CO of 9 parts per million, and we have a CO2 of 7.3%. And again, you would be looking if your manufacturer's instructions actually tells you what your CO and your CO2 are. So again, the ratio's gone off the scale because there's not enough CO and CO2 being made. So at the moment, we've got a ratio of 0.0000, a CO of 3 and a CO2 of 7.3%. So we're waiting for this stable reading. So that is pretty stable. Like I say, it has been running, you've seen it running for over 15 minutes, or around about 15 minutes. See what it is in maximum. Let's have a look at our pressure first. So our pressure is 23 millibars. That's 23.2 millibars. Can you see that? So that's our inlet pressure on minimum. Remember, it says just a minimum of 17.5. Got a little leak trap light in there. Let's get it on maximum, which is just a tap symbol. You should hear the different tone on the boiler now. And we'll leave that to acclimatise. Now technically on a service, flue integrity testing, they reckon, is not required on a service, only on commission. But why not do your flue integrity testing while you, especially on this boiler where the test point's already open, you might as well do your flue integrity testing. This boiler is played around with by the trainees all the time, and we've got a ratio of 0.0006, we've got a CO of 48, we've got a CO2 of 7.7. So when they've been adjusting this valve, they've not been adjusting it back properly, have they? So if my readings are this bad, because on this boiler it says on maximum your CO2 should be between 8.2 and 10.2, but they give you a specific reading, Ariston, of around about 9.2, so 9 to 9.2, so we're well under on the maximum. But like I say, the trainees have been playing around with this all the time, so this is where I would be adjusting it. But seems pretty stable now. We've got a ratio of 0.0006. So while I've got this running and I've got it on maximum and I've taken the combustion chamber out, what I always do now is I just run my hand, now it's all nice and warm, around the seal to see if I can feel any heat coming out of there. Obviously be careful when you do this, because if it has got hot gases coming out of there, you're going to burn your fingers. Or some manufacturers tell you to actually do a sleep test. So I like to put my hand around it because I don't like my fingers. Anyway, that seems okay as well, so that's good. Let's have a look what we've got here. So it's not changing much, so that's the maximum setting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip it over the analyzer to our oxygen reading, so our O2 on this cane, and I'm going to swap the ports because we want to do our flue integrity. Now, what I've got to do now is, because of the flue integrity, is I need to put the cover back on, but I also need to disconnect that as well. So we've got all our readings. Oh, we never checked. Oh, it's gone off now. It's timed out. Let's have a bit of gas blowing out. This is why digital manometers are rubbish. So we've got an inlet pressure, even on maximum here, but it is only a short run, of 20 millibars. So we're easily in on the working pressures at the gas valve. So we're happy days with that. So what I can do now is take that off, tighten this back up, and with my trusty leak detection fluid, I can test it. So now you know why I've got it on a brush, not on a spray. I don't go near the electrics. So that's looking good. So now I can put the flap back up and I can get the casing back on. There's my D12. I can put my 2 screws in. And I can now take my readings for my oxygen. So we're looking for a reading of not less than 20.6 on our O2, and we've got 20.95. So what that's telling me is, don't seem to be anything wrong with the flue system. Okay, if I go back onto the ratio, I want to see what my CO2 reading is, because my CO2 cannot be greater than 0.2, and we've got 0. So let's just stick it on minimum. I can see it. There you go, we're on minimum. And away it goes again. So we put it on our oxygen, and we've still got the 20.95. So heating's up to temperature now. That didn't take long, did it? So that's our flue gas analysing, except the last test we need to do is our sweep test. So, oops. If I put this back in, yes, I will be changing this. It is on the oxygen one at the moment, so I'll change that in a minute. So because it's up to temperature, I'm just going to put the tap on. So I need to change the analyzer now to tightness testing, sweep testing. says sweep test. Press the button. So we're going to start the test. And we now have a 2-minute test where we go around the turret. And the thing is, I didn't leave it long enough. Because it's saying our initial is at 97. But it's saying our CO is at parts per million, which is 0. So we're just going around and we need to be less than 10 parts per million. So we'll scoot round, go around the turret, go around the flue system, go around the bottom of the boiler, go around here because this is a fault, but there you go, are we getting anything out of there? Actually getting nothing. Around the boiler. I think you get the idea. Round here. So we've got 32 seconds left. Still reading 0. Nothing out the test point. Got 5 seconds left. There you go. The test is finished. So, turn the tap off. And I can turn off this test now. It's test mode. So the test mode is now off. So, we're near the end now of this servicing, and the next thing we need to do is check the water quality and check our filter. So let's check the filter. So the filter's round the corner here. So the first thing I need to do is turn it off. So there are 2 levers on the side, one at the top and one at the bottom. Then I need to get my bleed key and I need to open the vent just to let any pressure out, any bit of water coming out, and this will also check and tell us whether the valves are turning off or not before we remove the lid. Oh, we've got a bit of bubbling coming up. Where's my rag? Where's my rag going? That's it. Okay, so it stopped bubbling. So, now then, my key. This is the only key I've got. Well, I haven't, I've got about 4 of these. I don't fit this one for some reason. I can't find the right key for this. So hopefully I can get it off with my hands. Here goes. Oh, wow, that was easy. So I've got the bucket underneath, and the water. And we can see it's a bit of a dirty piece. So I need to take it to the sink and wash it. So, get rid of the bottle. Get rid of the magnet. Give the magnet a bit of a clean. magnet's better than it was. Oh, that won't come off. See, solid. The filter side's not coming out. Now some of you will be saying, this isn't part of the service. Technically, it should be, and you should be charging for it, because this is here to protect the boiler, and you're servicing the boiler. So in my opinion, this should be cleaned. What do you think? Put it in your comments down below, guys, if you don't think we should be cleaning these, or we should be charging extra for them. I want to get this bottom off, but oh, there you go. Needn't have bothered. That's all back together. It's cleaner than it was. So that's the filters clean, but I want to take a sample of the water. Now I could do this at the radiator, or I can do it at this filter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the drain out of the bottom of the filter, and it'll also help clean the bottom of the filter out, and we'll see what dirt is at the bottom. So just undo the drain if you can. Before it runs out, take your sample with your turbidity tube. So if you've never seen these before, I've done a few videos on turbidity tubes and water quality. So you can see it's pretty yellow because this has got a lot of inhibitor in. So I can just tip a bit of this down the sink or out through the bucket till I get to the levels it needs to go to this line here. And then I need to be able to look through the tube. But also, I've got these test strips, which tells me how much inhibitor's in the system. And you can actually dip it in, leave it in for 2 seconds, shake it off, and then we can check with the colours on the side here to see how much inhibitor is in. Okay, so it's kind of between those two colours there, if you can see that. So there's plenty of inhibitor in this system. So they're the checks you need to do with the turbidity tube and the test strips. And these apps where you can take pictures of them and keep the records of them and all that kind of stuff. So again, this is what I class as a service. So we can now get the magnet back in. Don't cross-thread it, Derek. Probably being cock-handed. I'm letting the camera see what you're doing. Tighten it up. So we need to close the air vent. open up the valves. Oh. Jesus, these are tight. Oh. And this better. Doesn't need to be that tight. Then we need to bleed. Where's my glove? Check and see if we need to top up. Not really, but there you go. Put the boiler back on to make sure it circulates around the heating. We haven't got any leaks. There we go. This is where you get your brass saw out and start polishing the pipes. So, that's what I call a full service. Okay? And I would obviously have to go now and fill all my paperwork in, because you're supposed to leave with the customer some proof that you've had it serviced. Again, if you were doing a landlord's report, it's not mandatory that the landlord has paperwork for servicing or breakdowns, but there's no harm in giving them the paperwork for servicing and breakdown. So that's my video on servicing. I reckon it's just been about, what, an hour and 10? Not really sure. As time flies when you're having fun, but I have talked a lot during this video. So you could say servicing between 45 minutes and an hour long, and that's what you should be allowing. A service is not just racking up and doing a flue gas analyzer test, as you've seen from this video. But if you disagree with anything on these videos, just put the comments down below, but please be polite about it. Okay, there's no need to jump down my throat. This is what Ariston expects for their boiler servicing. But if you've enjoyed this video, why don't you give me that thumbs up, or like I say, leave a constructive comment down below. If you've not subscribed to my channel, then please subscribe because it helps, and don't forget to hit that notification bell because you want YouTube to tell you when we're uploading videos. I think by now you know it's Mondays and Wednesdays. And don't forget my little vlogs on Fridays. All I've got left to say is, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Cheers.